clean copy.
Okay.
but wait for a clean copy. All right. Romain, why don't you listen to the feedback on this and then you can run into it. I'm sorry. I'm done. She will help us out. Thank you, I'm sorry. I'm a stickler for detail and usually have checks and all that in place, but we were scrambling to get all this in for today.
Just a quick question. Who in the township has access to credit cards? And could you give me an example of a legitimate credit card expense or charge?
I can't hear her.
She asked who has access to credit cards and can I give her an example of a legitimate credit card expense?
Good.
So access to credit cards, so now there is a card issued to Rich at Richoff, and he is the master on the account, although I haven't seen a transaction from him on his card. But
I've not activated my account.
So he's the master holder of the credit card right now, which would probably eventually transition to me, but the master,
Authorized officer,
Yes,
I
thank
believe is
you.
the credit card.
Thank you. That controls all the accounts. I have an account, Michael handles a lot of operational items, he has an account. Megan has an account,
Roger,
Dell has an account,
and
um,
Roger.
and Roger has an account. You don't have one. You don't have one. Do you have one?
Oh,
Credit card?
he didn't have
Oh, you haven't used,
I also have not used mine, but I know.
yes, he hasn't, so I haven't seen any statement.
Mine's like in an emergency, my credit limit is higher, where I can be able to, but I haven't activated it either.
The controls in place there, though, everybody has limits, and those are set, kind
Per
of.
transaction? You mean or total?
Total.
Total, okay.
I don't know. Transaction. Did I per transaction? And
I learned a lot about our credit card this summer.
it's all in one comprehensive statement. So they all come together, one PDF, so you can't miss any pieces of it.
Okay. And then what would they?
So you asked about a legitimate
Oh,
example.
sorry.
So today, we were downloading the video from last night, and it needed to go onto our website. And so we ran out of storage for our website, and so we needed to increase that storage to a higher limit. So that's a subscription service, so we paid for that with a credit card.
Yeah, sure, okay.
But this whole list, the second to last
I
page.
just don't have, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's
No,
more
you're-
up there, I think, but.
So it is a good point, so putting the credit card is new for this register.
Okay.
So that's a new thing that we're doing.
Okay.
And so they're on there and they're on the back. And you can look and ask about any of them.
Anyone? Oh,
yeah.
Got it.
So yeah, there are a lot of things, training, conferences, fees, membership fees, office supply orders, IT subscriptions. We actually pay for a lot of our Microsoft, Verizon, small things that cutting a check to each and every vendor on
It'd
this.
just be crazy, yeah.
Right. And for this particular month, Holiday Village, you see, we're already in the process of getting all of that reimbursed 100%. And that, you see, is entered in a specific GL account. So we will know by the penny if we get recovery of all the Holiday Village expenses.
Okay, thank you.
May we have a motion to?
I move that we pay the bills for the month per the bill vouchers presented.
I'll second.
So that motion should read in the amount of the bill register, which is $1,090,847. So you're approving
So
this
amended.
document to that dollar amount.
963,307.87.
No.
No, that's the transfer. The
Grand
total bills
bills.
is $1,090,800
So
$90,847.
And the transfers listed on the summary page in the total of 963,307.87.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
so we'll clean that up a little bit. So it should read, motion to pay the bills for the month of, so motion to approve the bill voucher summary as presented for the month of December in the amount of $1,090,847 and to approve the subsequent transfer of $953,307.87. 63, pardon me,
53,000.
963.
Okay, now,
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna get,
Michael,
I'm
do you
gonna
have
get to your
that?
question as soon as I
Thank
check
you,
with the
Michael. So moved.
supervisors to see if they have any comments or questions on the motion as it has been managed.
She moved it and I just seconded it.
Right.
Okay.
So I think we're finally cool on the motion in the second. But I do have just a couple quick questions on some of the bills. I looked at it, what are we paying Moonflower Horticultural for?
That is one of the providers that does landscaping services around the building.
Okay. And do we have an agreement going forward with Delta the same way we did for the past year, or where is that for the 2020?
So we were talking about that last week, and there are multiple ways in which we work with them. One is on a specific project basis, and we have a quote, and in the past, we've paid those in chunks. For 2019, we wanted to make sure that we're paying them up to date. All work that's been conducted to date and completed to date is now paid for with the payment of these bills, so we won't have projects from prior years carrying into 2020. That's one thing. And then the arrangement going forward, Eden has been working on.
Yeah, so we have a master services agreement with them, and then we pay for them on a project basis. We've initiated a renegotiation of that MSA in hopes for essentially a better price or a deal that we feel is more representative of our usage of them. So, and they were willing for that process. So as that reaches more final stages, we'll bring that to the public for update and ratification.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to make sure, because that was one of the things that was, tickling the back of my cranium.
Sure.
Do either of you have any other comments or questions?
I do.
Did everyone follow that Delta conversation? I know we kind of rushed through that. Did everyone follow that? Good.
So so a couple of technical questions about this. So are we still using the old bank accounts? Or are they being shut down? Is this all coming out of new bank accounts?
All the checks are being cut out of the new accounts.
Right.
The credit card, as you know, is being paid out of the new accounts. Most of the ACHs have moved. There might be a straggler or two that on the utilities.
Okay.
So we're transitioning. Part of what I wanted to get in here, but I didn't, is more of that closeout process of what's in the old, exactly where the bank rec is. In other words, what checks are outstanding and can we move them over and close? We're close, but we're just not.
Getting
Yeah,
close. All right, as long as you're getting closer. And then you mentioned the credit card payment, so how that's reflected in here just because of these charges.
Right, so right here in the middle of the page, 8782 and 20 cents.
Right,
That is the bill that is due next.
right.
But what I want to do, because it's year end, is refresh with you up to the very current, and then December 30th, approve another.
Right, and
Payment.
it's all general fund here too. Is it,
Yes.
okay. Is there
This,
one
right,
for sewer?
currently, they're, in this particular
Or
batch, no.
Okay, or EMS, so there's nothing for EMS.
EMS has dual codes, so they have codes, we pay some things out of general fund, some things out of EMS, which is part of why it should be.
Yeah,
That's one of the transfers we have to do, is reimbursing the general fund for EMS expenses.
okay. And that'll happen behind the scenes on this. And
I'll have to get that approved. Well, no, not for these particular, but in total, for the year to date, that's one of the things I wanna give to you for December 30th.
Okay, so it doesn't appear in the transfers then? That aspect, or it does?
No, for this particular statement, this is all hitting general fund, all paid out of general fund,
Oh, so it's
no transfers required
Great,
for this particular statement.
perfect,
In the future, if there's a need to, we would include it.
okay,
Separately, for the whole year, EMS owes general fund some money, which I will bring to
Figure
you
out.
for December 30th to close out. So there's some rules about moving money right around year end, and there's some rules about, for cash accounting. On an accrual basis, or modified accrual basis, I could in various ways accrue the expense to get including 2019 expenses without having to make sure every last bill is paid. Because we're cash basis, anything we do this year that we haven't paid for, cash basis, we pay for it in 2020. Well, that's gonna start our 2020 budget off in a place of having spent funds from 2019. So this packet is more expensive than our normal annual amount, monthly amount, because of that cleanup. I basically fast forwarded on getting as much in as we can into 2019 to properly reflect 2019 expenses because we're cash basis and I can't accrue.
That's all explained in the top paragraph. Okay, do you have more questions?
Yes. So, in prior ones, we used to be able to see each person's net pay, but I don't see that here. Will we get that,
That's not typical to provide at an individual person basis because it's employee data.
Mhm.
We can, well, certainly if you want to report for the Board of Supervisors, we could do that as frequently as you want. If we want to provide more to the public, we can.
Okay, alrighty. And then I had a couple questions about some specific items also. So, for instance, there was a pretty large charge for Penn Trails on the credit card. Is
Yes, that was a matter of an invoice for some of their recent projects, which were approved projects. Didn't get to us in time to make the bill cut when we were originally, had the deadlines, and basically we had already done all the opens. We had already done that funds, and so I charged it.
Okay. And then I just had a question. So on the general fund on page 6 of 13, there's a PA Association of Municipal Administration charge for 178,000 state pension.
Oh, that is our annual contribution from the minimum municipal obligation that was approved in September.
Right. And how does that compare to what's on the Emergency Services Fund to going to PMRS? Is that a different, or is that going to the same
What
sort of
page?
fund?
What page is the EMS on?
Page 4 of 4 of the EMS. They sound like similar things. One's pension, one's state pension. One might be for the police officers versus others. I'm just trying to.
So definitely,
difference.
general fund is the non-uniform employees.
Okay.
EMS is the uniform employees. I have a feeling that the names are how they were set up in each of those systems, but are one and the same.
Okay. So that's sort of a carryover
Probably,
dealing with
probably,
our
yeah.
QuickBooks
We can double check that that isn't an issue
Okay.
with how
Yeah.
with them receiving the payment, but the minimum municipal obligation that was approved in September for each of those pension plans is in here and is being paid.
Right.
We previously received the state funds, the grant portion of it that came in a couple months ago and was deposited, so now we're paying it.
Yes, sir.
Well, Dr. Leff had touched on the trail consultant on Penn Trails, the $3,600. Just wanted to confirm that that's not to an individual, but it's for projects, I believe you said?
Yes, Penn Trails is our trail consultant. They do an extensive amount of work, with the township. We've been working with them a lot with the large grant that's ongoing. We have a 1.7 million grant with a $900,000 match that's been out there for a while that we've been doing work on. So some of the projects are associated with that. We also did a new master. There's a master comprehensive plan underway for the trails that's almost completed. So they've been engaged project by project with each project coming to the board.
So translated, we'll get about 2/3 of that money back.
Well, we have to outlay 900,000 in cash, so that might be part of it.
Okay.
So, but we can't start collecting on the reimbursement until construction actually begins. Part of the reason why we're a little excited about Chandler Mill Bridge starting in January.
One of the reasons. Yes.
Can you explain the processes you have in place now for when bills come in
Sure.
and how they get down to this point where they're
So we're on a paper process right now. Some of them come to us electronically, but we do print everything out and we do physically initial sign every bill. So whoever is the responsible procurement person. So Roger, for example, does various things for the roads and signs off on those, and then he reviews those with Megan, and I look at those as well and sign off on them as well as a second eye. And then Megan inputs them into QuickBooks, and cuts the check and produces the report. I review all that, and then they're presented for signature with the backup, which that's why she has stacks of folders back there with all the receipts to be signed.
So when the board signs these, they've got backup for those, so they can see that credit card bill and see the transactions on the actual credit card bill.
Yes, I will say one caveat with this particular, the check she has tonight is just the checks. But as I mentioned, Rich is the primary person on the credit card bill, so he has had it and looked at it. And we will have the credit card bill with each of the backup. I have that upstairs.
Yeah, so what you don't know is this, normally I'd be looking at the credit card bill statements each month and then send it on paper. They're now actually as a spreadsheet, because last time I downloaded a QuickBooks file that you could then
Yeah.
input.
Yeah, you gave
So-
them both, yeah.
So I've seen it some before, and also when I send it out, I send the credit card statement to all the supervisors also. Been doing that since May.
And so each, as I mentioned before, each person is listed, each card that we have is listed with its transactions, and then Megan and I work with to get the backup for each of those. So then we have a packet, again, currently hard copy, of all the backup. So with the sign off of the immediate manager, and then we do further validation and sign off.
Okay, so going previously, when Lisa was in charge, I'm assuming in your fiduciary role of looking at, you signed checks and didn't have backup to show what you're signing checks for?
What we did was go through the same process as we talked about here, going through and having these statements. And we had the checks, which you recall they would go down the line and we would sign them and get them all signed. The backups were available, we were looking at them, suppose.
So I think it's important to remember that the criminal complaint outlines that a lot of checks were being dispersed with the
Right.
signature stamp.
Right.
And Amy's been talking for almost an hour now, and at no point in time has she introduced the idea of a signature stamp, because we just
I was
don't have
gonna-
it in our organization.
I was gonna point that out, that nowhere did the subject of signature stamps come
Right.
out. Glad you did.
Additionally, and so I'm waiting for the motion to pass and for Amy to conclude here to kind of compliment her on the process. So I'll defer, but this is clearly a much more thorough, comprehensive process than what Kennet Township has probably ever seen.
Right,
And that's something to be excited about.
Agreed.
in case you needed it. Okay, it's been moved and it's been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes, thank you.
Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll interrupt Amy's report, which is still
Done.
to keep going.
Well,
Are
I
you
did talk
done?
about financial reporting earlier.
Did you talk about that? Okay, so I'll just compliment Amy and Megan. They, Amy's giving herself credit. They are grinding hours and hours and hours. Like, I'm getting midnight emails on a Sunday night from them with the amount of work that they're doing, and it's all designed to tighten up our finances. It's going to take a lot of time. I feel kind of bad for Amy and Megan because I go in, I'm like, well, have you done this yet? And they're like, no, how about the first 200 things you asked me to do? And so it does take time, but we're getting there. I'm proud of where we are. We have a long way to go, but I think that this is really something to be excited about. I see some people who are like, oh my gosh, just technical speak, but this is really important. I mean, this is really not the sexy part of local government, but managing these processes, the daily grind, making sure that we're doing it in a way that gives you faith and confidence in us, and integrity to the township and our systems is really important. And that's where we are. So there's a lot of detail here, and we're going to continue to provide it to you, and there's just more coming. So hopefully you enjoy accounting at least a little bit, because there's a long way to go. So hopefully you're as excited as we are.
What are your thoughts about the trees? Do we need to print them out, or?
Website,
I think the website.
if we put them on the website, will you look at them on the website in advance?
Yeah.
Or bring a tablet, or phone, or a computer.
Except technically, I don't think there's any trees in that. I think that's all chemicals. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so that gets us through the finance and HR director's report, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, very full and very exciting. We're excited. Police department.
So I'm gonna cut Sergeant Gordon off right before he starts, if that's okay. So, more paper, is that all right? What? What's so fun? Alright, so more paper. So this is a lot of data. It's not technical accounting stuff. This is the daily grind of what's happening in your township, right? There's a lot of people who work here who do really great work, and a lot of it is spelled out here. So we're starting at the front of the police with Sergeant Gordon, who's gonna go through his report, and we're gonna keep rolling. So if you don't have this, pick one up, they're over here, and follow along. This will give you really good information about just what's happening in Kennett Township, that maybe you are seeing, maybe you're not, or maybe we're unaware of, and follow-up items on previous actions. So, okay, sorry, Sergeant.
That's okay. So, for the month of November, we had just under 500 incidents, 478 year to date, a little under 6,523. I will tell you, we're way past that at this point in time, but I'll do that next month, if I'm still here. Public service announcements is crashes related to weather and animals. Obviously, that's a big deal around here, with the deer population and the inclement weather that's coming. So please use caution in that regard. Theft activity, you know, it's always out there, but especially this time of year with the porch pirates and you guys getting your Christmas gifts delivered to your home. I would highly recommend getting the Ring cameras and doing some lighting and surveillance around your homes. If you're not up on security systems, most internet companies have that available to you, where you can monitor those things through your phone, your computer while you're away. In that regard, as far as pushing would-be thieves away from your homes. Along with that is fraud alerts, you know, phone calls from people that you've never met saying that, you know, a relative's in trouble, you need to send money through credit cards or gift cards or those kinds of things. Anybody that tells you that they're a judge, a cop, they're gonna lock you up over the phone is not a cop, not a judge. Call 911, hang up the phone, don't give them any personal information. I know some of our seniors at Kendall have been victimized because they're vulnerable, they wanna do the right thing, they wanna help. Just be aware of that. So if you get a phone call saying that you owe money to anybody, I would just end that phone call, call your local police and try to get that, but it's not legitimate. Oh, Christmas is here, Longwood Gardens. I know you guys are homegrown, but it's amazing if you get a chance to see it. We did training this month as far as 14 hours of critical incident response, and that's basically teaching us how to take care of emergency services workers, fire, EMS, paramedics, and what they see on the job, and the stresses that happen and the problem it causes. So I was excited to attend that. Corporal Call attended interviewing juveniles. Officer Simmons, 8 hours of tactical communication, the art of de-escalation training, which most of our officers have been through, and that's pretty much all we had. Now, in November, although we had 478 incidents, there was nothing significant. There was no homicides. I think we had one burglary in that regard as far as Part 1 crimes. Everything else was a Part 2 or traffic related.
I know you said you went, had this critical emergency response. Wasn't there something like in the past week or so where there were some firefighters injured? I think it was in Avondale, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, and just to let you know is, I mean, you guys watch the news. The emergency services, especially in the roadways, police officers, firefighters, fire police, the move over law was designed to keep emergency services people safe. It's still, people still drive distracted on their phones, you know, loud music, talking to each other. These all lead to driving impaired, lead to these injuries and fatalities. Also, on the other side of the coin is police officer fatalities from violent action. That's been epidemic here in the last month. So if you get a spare minute, say a prayer for a cop, a firefighter, an EMT, we'd be all about that. Are there any questions?
I just want to say, if you want to know what they had set up down at Avondale, they had the full road closed off.
Oh
They
my
have
goodness.
traffic unit cones on both sides, people there, and she's like,
Oh my God.
"Take the cone, what they say?" Looks like you gotta get out of the way.
Sounds like
You're
you're.
in charge.
Oh, yeah.
Sergeant, are you done with your report?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Whitney, you asked some questions. You done?
Yes.
Rich, you have any?
No.
Okay. Anybody? Yes.
Is she not on administrative leave or?
It's Cannon Township's policy not to comment on matters of personnel. Sometimes when there is a personnel matter, there's a professional process that needs to be taken care of. When we reach the end of that process, we'll be able to discuss it with the board in the public. So,
Thank
you.
Do you have a
Jeff,
time
did you
frame
see
on
your
that?
hand up?
I
Okay.
agree.
Do you have a time frame on that?
No comment.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Thank you, Sergeant. Okay, so that brings us up to Public Works. Roger, you still awake down there?
I am, welcome, finally got to my end, it's good. We did a little something different this year, or we're starting out, I've added some photographs to keep everybody entertained.
Are we gonna be quizzed on?
Yes, we will, so it'll be a test at the end of the program. Some of the topics we talked about, the portable pump that we purchased. This is a picture of the pump, it's for a pump station that's under a small size, it can't be, our bigger pump can't back up this system because the piping's small, so it needs a smaller pump. This is the pump we purchased last month. We did get it in, we got it all set up, and so it's in place, ready to roll. This is what it looks like before it falls in the hole. Our snow prep, we've got our plow post up. Salt's been ordered, and that's just a picture of our salt barn's full. Little demonstration diagram of when you shovel your snow out of your driveway, so we don't push it back in again. It does help a little bit. Drainage, we've been doing drainage in the area, inlet boxes, sinkholes, anything that needs repaired drainage wise that we've been putting off through the summer. This is just a picture of one of the pipes that we had dug out. This is in Ponza Woodward. Traffic, we had an incident at our Kendall Woodchuck Way light. We had a resident that called and couldn't get the light to trip, so we went up and investigated. The leaves had fallen off the tree, so on a bright sunny morning, the sun's shining in the camera, and it couldn't detect the car. So this is the intersection that you see the picture of. So we had the camera adjusted to pick up the shade. The head wall on Marshall Bridge Road, it has been damaged by trucks that aren't supposed to be turning onto the bridge. We had been putting it off just because we hadn't had time to get to it. It was brought up by one of the residents that they would like to have it done, so we jumped right on it and got the cap put back on it and pieced together. That'll seal it up for the winter. Our MS4 basin inspections, there's a list there of what basins have been inspected this month. After the inspections, then the report sent out to the homeowner for the HOA, and then with the recommendations on how to repair, they take care of it, call us back, and then we go take a look at it. This is just a picture of one of the basins with the outfall structure. It's all brush thrown up around it. That's just what they had to remove. Pennsylvania One calls, we responded to 71 calls this month. That varies every month. Most of them we can clear without a whole lot of markouts. So it just keeps a running total of what we do. So there's someone assigned that's on call for a PA1 call, markouts and stuff. So we'll try to keep up to date on that report as a monthly report. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Roger. Are there any questions or comments for Public Works Manager?
I've got one.
Just a second. Do the supervisors have any questions?
So about how many basins do you inspect or take a look at and take care of? I guess
Depending on the weather, because we have to wait so many days after a rain, do outfall tests and stuff, but he's running, we've been through the round, I think this is twice, we're on the third round now. So it moves pretty fast now that have gotten it up, so. And it's really impressive how fast the HOAs and the homeowners are jumping on the repairs.
Nice.
It's really a good turnout and work. So, I know it's probably running about 10 or 15 a month, maybe.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, apologize for jumping in there. So
No,
the
that's-
study that was done a couple years ago with the traffic safety and additional stop signs that were added at some of the intersections like Dillondale and Byard, a lot of those intersections have the stop signs on each side of the road.
Yes.
Is there any plan to get rid of the stop sign on the left side going forward, since those stop signs have been up for a while now, a couple years?
There isn't a plan to, we did it more for a safety thing. It has, accident-wise, it has dramatically decreased the accidents. I don't know the count of accidents that it has decreased on. We did take some of the flashing red lights off some of the intersections. They were annoying some of the residents, flashing in their lights at night. So, places we thought we could take those away, we did take them away. But if that's something that's, I don't wanna say annoying people, the two signs or something, we could look at it, but it is a great effort. I mean, it's showing good response, I guess, to our actions.
Right. I know both of them were put up, on each side of the road when they initially put them in, because it was a new stop sign.
Right.
But I just, is there a need to have both there going forward, just cosmetically?
Please do.
McFarland and Creek and McFarland and Rosedale. Even with the lights flashing, that's still a traffic hazard for us, so we set up on that a lot. I don't know what it is, but it's like they're invisible.
Okay, thanks.
And Roger, I just wanted to note one thing. I just noticed with a bunch of the signs in the township, you now have strips that go all the way down.
Very good.
That was very nice.
Very good. Yes, on our curves, Bayard Road, we have a really hard time keeping cars on the road on Bayard Road. I don't know what it is, but we've tried several different things. We've had plenty of recommendations, which we've looked into several. We're trying, this is another recommendation. It is working very well. We haven't had an accident since we put them up, but they've only been up for about a week and a half, so. We are going to do that on all of our turns as we're upgrading through, but
Yeah, even the
I know
signs
they're
like
really
your-
high reflective, and if you get too many signs out, everybody thinks it looks like a circus at nighttime when you come down the road. It does, but, and it doesn't matter how many signs you put up, after people just ignore them after a while, or they just come, But we'll try anything, sometimes just moving a sign, taking it down, moving it, or, on the other side of the road, right, grabs their attention, but we'll try anything. If you got any suggestions, please feel free to call in, that's what we're here for.
That was great. I just wanted to say. I just noticed that, so.
Glad you noticed.
Are there any other questions for Roger? Comments? Yes, sir.
So, is it given any thought to putting a traffic circle over here at Hillendale and Burroughs Run Road? Right here, just where there's back-to-back stop signs? That looked to me like a ideal place to put a circle.
Hasn't been any talk about it, there's really not a lot of accident rates there, that's usually a driver for a circle. Besides the area that it takes to put a circle in would be an enormous amount of buildings and.
It just seems to me there's enough space there to put a circle in, and otherwise you have to stop twice coming through there.
I'll take that as a recommendation, but.
I saw a police cruiser the other day that didn't stop twice, but that's another matter.
What township was it from?
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Yes.
That brings us to zoning and codes department. Does that look like you?
Michael volunteered to give Diane's report tonight.
Oh, Michael.
Thank you very much, Michael.
No problem. So the zoning hearing board has an upcoming hearing scheduled at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Do I have a slide on it? Don't remember. Yeah. Let's see. The
Sorry.
Power Place Church, 576 Rosedale Road, Suite 10, is requesting a variance of Section 240-1201 of the Kennett Township zoning code to permit the expansion of a church use in an existing building owned by McGrory Ventures at 576 Rosedale Road. Zoning updates. The Zoning Task Force Committee continues to work towards completion of the update of the zoning code through a grant through the Chester County Planning Commission. Meetings are scheduled the first Tuesday of each month. There's a subcommittee working on the T&D, Traditional Neighborhood Development Design Criteria. And the goal is being the implementation of one design standard instead of multiple across the code. The Renewable Energy Task Force is working on updates to energy requirements, and the Trails and Sidewalks Committee is working on updates to the subdivision and zoning codes regarding trails and sidewalks. As far as subdivisions and land development, there's currently 3 applications under full review, which the first one is Abello. They're located on the south side of Creek Road, the east end of the Kennett Borough municipal line. They're proposing to construct 6 apartment units and 17 parking spaces on a 1.37 acre parcel. The site will be served by public water and sewer. In your report, it says the status is indefinite extension due to issues with the sewer capacity. Those have been resolved in the last week, so we should see the application start moving forward. Parkside, the location is the southeast corner of Route 1 bypass and North Walnut Street, sort of close to Anson-Nixon Park. The applicant proposes the creation of 117 parcels from 4 parent parcels totaling 16.15 acres with construction of 6 apartment buildings containing 72 apartments, 78 townhouses, 8 twin houses, 13 single family homes with a total of 161 parking spaces. This application is currently awaiting zoning hearing, which is scheduled in January regarding requested variances. And then the Frick subdivision, which is located on the north side of the East Hillendale Road and west side of Kennett Pike. The applicant proposes creation of 2 separate lots. No sewage disposal or water supply is proposed. The applicant is waiting for DEP planning module approval. And then most recently approved for a preliminary plan was Mitchell Homes and Smith property. The applicant proposes construction of 72 residential units and 30 guest parking spaces on 21.24 acres at the south side of Rosedale Road, west of McFarland Road. Again, they had preliminary plan approval, and we will wait for them to submit final plan and go through that process. The Codes Department had 17 permits issued in November, and this does not reflect the number of sub-permits that are attached to the parent permit. That concludes that report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Michael on this report? Seeing none, hearing none? Thank you. And we'll go, I'll call your attention, we've already had the Kennett Fire report. Longwood generally does not appear to make a report, but you will find in the packet following Kennett, you'll find the Longwood Fire Company report that is displayed. So with that in mind, let's see, the last page of that has a memorandum from A.J. McCarthy of the November activities report, so that gives you an oversight on it.
I had a sort of question. So I looked at the Longwood report and the Kennett Fire report, and they look fairly similar. They're using similar databases, similar outputs. Is there a way to merge those databases so that we get a report maybe for all of Kennett and maybe for all of the EMS Commission?
So,
Or it could be either of the two, because you're our most recent appointee to the EMS.
Scudder, did you want to address it?
I can, if you want to go.
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay, well, the answer is that the way the system started out 2-3 years ago, it was like putting together a Japanese car, an English car, and a car from Malaysia. They use all different systems. They don't have common accounting charts of account. They're totally different. And to try to bring them together has been dramatically challenging. But they're making progress. And excuse me, the fact that they are as close as they appear to be in these two reports is decided progress from my perspective. Hopefully, there'll be even more progress in this as well as other areas that we'll be able to report on. But as of tonight, no, they don't. They use different systems.
I'm just very pleased we have a report from Long because we have not gotten one.
Right.
So I'm very pleased with that.
Yes, I agree.
I agree.
Did you want to add anything to what I said?
No, I think you covered it.
Thank you. Okay, then I think that brings us to the
Sustainable development.
Sustainable Development Office, and is that Michael?
Is this working?
Great.
Okay.
Bring it closer, please.
I'm sorry?
You angle it towards your mouth. There you go.
Like that?
Yes.
That better?
Closer to your mouth, wherever it is in you.
Hello. Yeah.
Thank you.
You'll be able to tell us what Jeff Yetter had for dinner.
Yeah. Okay. So the first item is the grants for various Kennett Greenway projects, their status. And as briefly as possible, because this is always a complex issue. In terms of November, we learned that we did not get a grant that we'd applied for the New Garden Corridor Trail. That's a trail that ran from, what was going to run from the Parish Trail south of Pennock Park over to a neighborhood in, basically a couple of neighborhoods over in New Garden. It's a connector trail. And so it wasn't accepted, and right now, we're not pursuing any other grant applications for the Kennett Greenway. None are budgeted for 2020. There's none pending. And if we do resume projects, they are most likely, the ones most likely to be considered for grant applications because they're in advanced state of design, are the Whittle Trail, which is a kind of extension connecting the Parish Trail to the to Chandler Mill Road, the Chandler Mill Road Trail, and the East Penn Underpass, which is a connection north of Pennock Park that when the Magnolia Trail is built, will connect it into Kennett Square and up into Penn's Manor and so forth. But as I said, none of these are going to be considered for 2020 at the moment unless something significant changes. And the reason why we're not pushing for any more grants is that we were very successful in previous years, and so we're still digesting the several $1 million in grants that we got to build various sections of the Greenway. And that and although we receive a lot of money from the state, it's not all of it, and we have to have a match. And we have other projects, grant projects, this year, not for the Greenway, the 5 Points Roundabout and a sewer for Creek Road, that if we get them, they're pending. If we get them, then we have matches for them as well. So we're holding off on other work for some of the reasons that you heard earlier. The next thing is active transportation network. So we did an active transportation study. There's many interesting things about it. That was completed last year. But one of the things in the study was to look at connections between our greenway system and other networks, what they call active transportation networks. So that term simply means hiking and biking and those sorts of activities, non-motor transport. And one of the main systems in this area is something called the Philadelphia Circuit system, which is projected to be about 800 miles of trails. This map that you see here is a schematic of that. If you go to the site for circuittrails.org, you can look at it exhaustively. But naturally, we'd like to connect to that. And there are also, besides just because we would like to connect and be able to get to those areas safely, but in addition to that, certain funding is open to us if we are on that trail. So one of the fortunate things is that the good news is that the Chester County Planning Commission has initiated a feasibility study to connect us to the circuit. And I'll be participating in that study as a representative of the township this year. I assume the study will probably be completed this year. And then they'll take the results of that study, if they're favorable, back to DVPRPC, the Regional Planning Commission, who is, by the way, paying for the study, so we're not paying anything for this. And if they accept a positive recommendation, then we'll be reconnected.
Excellent.
So it's a long-term play. Obviously, we won't build the connection for a long time, but getting on the map is the first step. So next one, the Center of Excellence for Indoor Agriculture was something that we had envisioned several years ago, and we went through a feasibility study, and the feasibility study recommended that we do it. Not only were the recommendations from the local community, but also from the regional and the national and even international community interested in having a center of excellence located in this area. So the first step, since we got the feasibility study and it was positive, was to actually set up the center. So the center is now set up as a virtual center. There's no physical location. There's just a website, but it's a pretty extensive website, and we're building that website, and we're building a membership. And actually, right now, we have more than 90 members, which is pretty good because we just started it about a month and a half ago. And we've also recruited a number of partnerships. So we will be in partnership with several major industry conferences in indoor agriculture, indoor ag-con, indoor ag tech, and there are some others that we're talking to as well. We started an energy procurement program, which would save energy costs for indoor agriculture facilities, including mushroom facilities, by the way. And we are in discussions with the American Mushroom Institute, both on the energy program, but also on how to help them conduct research in some areas, including one close to Whitney's heart, forage flies.
Yes, absolutely.
And in another area is spent mushroom substrate, which is another big issue in this area. So what we're trying to do is both help the local community, the local indoor agriculture community, which is, of course, primarily, almost exclusively mushrooms, but also bring in technology and investment and so forth from the green, what I call the green indoor agriculture area, and to sort of marry the two and have this area be the center for that. So this is just to tell you that we're making a lot of progress in this area, especially in terms of launching the Center of Excellence. All right, next victim. The 5 Points roundabout grant applications. So, as probably all of you know, we've been trying for a long time to get a roundabout built at 5 Points. That's where Hillendale meets Union 82, whatever, and several roads come in. And the project has been spec'd actually for a while. PennDOT has been a big part of that, and the price of that will be about $3 million right now. And we had applied for a grant, a PennDOT multimodal grant, and frankly, we expected to get it because PennDOT had been pushing this project. So we were surprised when we didn't, and the only reason that we get, and this is true for any grant, is they just tell us, well, it was very competitive, and so we didn't get it this year. So we never get, we go through, by the way, we don't even get to that point if the grant doesn't qualify, if we haven't checked all the boxes and it's all been reviewed and so forth. So we had a very legitimate and strong application, but I guess they just had higher priorities and ran out of money this year. So there's another.
I just want to point out, we don't accept that as an answer. You've heard me talk about it in
Yes.
previous meetings. This is a really important project, and I've made that very clear to Representative Barrar and Senator Killian, who both support the project. We're going back to PennDOT next year for additional funding, and frankly, I'm going to need all of your help if we have a chance at getting this. It's a heavy lift, but the Commonwealth is going to need to help us out. It's not even all of our roads. I mean, some of these are PennDOT roads, so it's going to have to be a community effort.
Well, and there are really two types of grants that are appropriate for this. One is controlled entirely by PennDOT, and the other is controlled by a authority called the CFA, the Commonwealth Funding Authority. And that's the one that Eden's really referring to, because that's the one that's influenced most by our local representatives. I suppose they always write letters of support, so even for the PennDOT one, but they don't actually participate in the process.
Correct.
So we still have a grant application in process. We don't know what'll happen with that. So, as Eden mentioned, we went to Harrisburg to lobby for this, and we'll continue to fight for this grant, because this is a failing intersection, and everyone knows, at least everyone around here knows, that something has to be done eventually. Going back, yes. Any questions?
Yeah, maybe simply an example of state parties realizing that they can't spend beyond their means, which may be a lesson for us. But
You're
if we don't
speculating
get,
on that.
what's that?
You're speculating on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we don't get the grant, then what?
Don't proceed.